Alright guys, back here with another video. Today we're going to be talking about something a bit more topical. We're going to be talking about the tariffs announced last week by President Trump. Um, everyone's talking about it. It's a global talking point um, all over the news and everything. So we're going to be breaking it down a little bit. So the first question about this is, whether or not Trump even has the right to unilaterally announce tariffs as president, as the executive. A lot of constitutional questions about this. Ultimately, the Constitution actually gives the right to produce tariffs, to enact tariffs to the Congress. Um, they asked Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, whether he has any problems with this. And he said, we want to defer to Trump for the time being, at least. Um, he said something along the lines of, he won the election. Millions of people voted for him. He won the popular vote. Let's give him a chance. Something like that. So he doesn't seem all that concerned by if we take him at his word. Um, you know, Still, that doesn't erase the fact that it's not constitutional by the letter of the law. Um, will Republicans do anything about it? That's another question. They control every chamber of the government right now. So if they ultimately don't think they want to get in his way, then nothing's going to stop them. Democrats can't stop them, basically. So, because they're at a disadvantage everywhere. House, Senate, Supreme Court, presidency, none of the power is in their hands right now. So, second point is, is Trump using this whole thing, is this whole fiasco just a bargaining chip, art of the deal style? Um, I think it's plausible that it's partially what's going on in his mind, but unlikely to be the sole reason that he's doing this, that he made it, such a cornerstone of his campaign and everything. Uh, it doesn't make sense to make it such a talking point if he just wanted to use it to get a little bit of a better trade deals with other countries, and not actually go ahead and enact these tariffs and, cause prices to go up in the United States. Obviously, he doesn't want to look weak by going back and forth on the tariff, saying, I'm going to put them in. Oh, I'm not. 90-day moratorium, which he's talking about now. I guess because the stock market going down this much bothered him. But doubly, it can be used as a bargaining chip, among other things, other reasons. So, what is the rationale? That's number three. Point number three. What is the rationale? Why and how did they come up with these numbers that they came up with in that big chart that he showed at the announcement? So the equation that they gave on the government website is ultimately about trade deficit and surpluses. So the way it works in Trump's mind is if we run a deficit to you, we're at a disadvantage. We are um, buying more from you than you're buying from us, and we don't like that. So it seems like the tariffs are designed in such a way as to equalize and uh, make there be no deficit and no surplus between any two countries, the United States and any other country. Um, I don't know if I need to explain this, but with within traditional capitalist theory, this doesn't make any sense. There's no inherent problem with the trade deficit. There's this famous idea called comparative advantage. You can learn about it commonly in Intro to Macroeconomics. It's basically says that if one country can make something that we need cheaper than we can, and more efficiently or higher quality than we can, or any of the three, any combination of the three, it is to our advantage to get it from them and not try to build up our own industry within our borders to make that thing ourselves. Um, so the basic idea is that it is to our advantage, uh, and we can get what we need, and we can give them something in return, whether that be other produce, products, services, or monetary compensation. So yeah, the rationale. by going by the equation and everything else. In um, the talk about this uh, enactment, suggests that we're buying more from you, so you are having more of our money. And Trump seems to think that this is to our disadvantage. But when you really think about it, who actually has the advantage? The seller who's getting money or product in return. The sellers only has the advantage if the buyer intends to pay back the seller at a higher interest rate. That's the so if you're gonna, let's say you agree to pay them back 5 to 10 years down the line, and you say we're gonna pay you back, don't worry, but it's without interest, or it's agreed to pay with interest, and you only agreed to after 5 years pass, like, oh yeah, we'll pay you back, but without the interest. Forget about the interest for us. This is only advantageous because you are saving money, if anything. How legitimate this kind of business practices is another question, but like when there's a power discrepancy between the two countries, some countries might not have any choice but to accept these sorts of terms. Um, there also isn't a consensus among economists on whether or not it is better for a country to hold debt or to be in debt, especially if there are power differences between the countries in question. So the questions that come up here are like, will this country resort to other means if it comes to it? If they're put in a difficult position and they can't pay back, will they resort to other means other than actually just paying them back? Um, Also, having a lot of debt as a country is only bad if your intention is, or if you are compelled to pay it back. If you intend on, or if you're compelled to pay it back. So another power discrepancy question. Um, you know, it's only bad for you to be in debt if you are forced to pay it back. If you can't be forced to pay it back, what is anyone going to do? Now, if you don't pay it back, obviously trust in the system may collapse and the whole system may crumble under its own weight. So that must be considered in one instance. But um, if you say, oh, we'll give you free services, or we'll like, do you try to strike a deal instead of resorting to military force? You can't really, yeah, sometimes in the international economic and geopolitics, might does make right. We're not talking the moral sense, but might determines what happens, how things proceed, how things develop over time. It's not talking about morality, though. Then, also, as a country, if you can take on the debt, but it means that you can grow your economy faster through investment, subsidies, uh, cheaper products, cheaper housing, etc., it might be to your advantage once again to take on debt. You ask for money, you invest it in your people, and you grow the economy faster, all to the benefit. If tariffs do stay in place, the world economy will never be the same as it was before. Ultimately, that much is clear. It's not going to be the same. Free trade, um, easy exchange of goods, services all across the globe. That's been the basically the consensus for decades now. If these tariffs stay in place, no longer going to be the case. There will be trade wars, there will be reciprocal tariffs from other countries, trade war. Where we'll end up, who knows? So, some economists think nobody wins a trade war, other people disagree. Um, but, US obviously being the biggest consumer country in the world and the country with the biggest GDP as of an individual country. Because of this, being the biggest market, emerging economies may get stifled by the US limiting access to their markets by placing tariffs on everyone. These countries may need to find other markets. Maybe China is a big example, could be a big one. Other emerging countries, India, Brazil, maybe some European countries willing to trade, um, willing to free trade, without the tariffs that the US is imposing. Uh, The last point I want to make on this, and then we're going to get to one last point of these tariffs. Equalizing the deficit versus surplus, which seems to be what is going on here. It doesn't make sense, just to be clear, in any economic school of thought, heterodox, orthodox, left wing, right wing, centrist, liberal, conservative, libertarian, Marxist. It doesn't make sense. Um, you can't have an equal trade balance sheet with everyone. It's not possible because there are things they make better than you, and there are things they can't buy from you because they're not as wealthy. For example, the example I would give is like Vietnam. They placed a 90% tariff because we buy more from them, a lot more from them, but they can't afford like high high tech uh, laptops and iPhones and whatever, you know? Like uh, not everyone in Vietnam most likely has you know, four devices, a cell phone, a laptop, a tablet. You know, the US, we are, as I said before, the biggest consumer in the world. We might think these things are normal. Everyone has them. It's not the case all around the world. Anyways, so I think ace that Trump thinks he has up his sleeve here is, you know, presumably he's saying stuff like we're going to bring manufacturing back, we're onshoring manufacturing inside the US to strengthen our economy. Um, I don't think that's what's going on here. I don't think he's going to replace these foreign uh, manufacturing with industry in the US with human jobs, but he may be thinking to replace these people uh, with robots, with AI, with AI technology advancing as fast as it has in the past several years. I think he may really be thinking to just put out, just make uh, the entire manufacturing base of the United States, bring a lot of those industries back, but in the form of highly intelligent robots doing everything that needs to be done in the production process, thus moving costs closer to zero. You know, there's a one-time payment you pay for the robot once. It doesn't need to sleep, eat, take breaks, go home. It doesn't, you know, perfect worker basically. It's not a human. It doesn't need sleep. It doesn't need any of these things, these limits we have on our human abilities, and thus being the perfect worker. And this is going to ultimately immiserate the United States working class and industrial base, what remains of it. Of it. Um, it's so difficult to say what the re results of this will be because their intentions are not clear. If the intention is to automate these jobs, but to share the benefits with everyone, so the profits of these big uh, industry plants being powered by AI robots, that being shared with people would be ideal, obviously. Less work needing to be done, less time out of our lives spent working for something, and we would just get the benefits of it, and we will get to do what we want with our time rather than being forced to work for a wage. That would be ideal. It's not clear that's what's going on here. He might be just trying to get rich off of the stuff himself and his friends, his, you know, Wall Street people, people in the AI industry, and people developing these technologies. So we may really have our first trillionaire in the next 5 to 10 years, and ultimately that wealth is going to be extracted from the middle class of the United States and other countries all around the world because they're taking their industrial manufacturing base of their own country, which is being done by people and being done for people for their benefit of getting a wage and being able to subsist off of that wage. If that's being taken over by robots and there's nothing done to equalize the income distribution, sky's the limit for income inequality. It's going to get even worse than now. It is now, which is almost hard to believe, and it's harder to hear for you guys maybe, but it's not inconceivable. And I think this is a little under discussed point is this AI point. It does seem to be what they have in mind. So they might be bringing back industry, but not for jobs, not for people, not for people. not for humans to work those jobs, but for AI to take over those industries. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to discuss further about what you think about my thoughts on this topic. Um, like, comment, subscribe. If you like this content and you want to hear more from me, um, share with your friends, share on social media. Any support is appreciated. All right. Thank you. Catch you in the next one.